Salvini, your host of Chronicles of Failure, and I've been thinking lately about failure, and I came across the story of a young executive who failed to adjust his mindset, among other things, as he embarked on a new role. So sit back, relax, as we review the story of the lone sailor, lost to sea while journeying to Executive Island. The story's unique, but the theme isn't, so in this episode, we'll explore the art of failure as it relates to growth and leadership. And don't forget to listen all the way through for details on our next guest and how you can be a guest yourself. Enjoy!
In the heart of a bustling tech startup city within the walls of a small but promising company, there was a dedicated software engineer named, let's call him Jake. Jake was the kind of employee that every manager dreamed of. Reliable, diligent, incredibly skilled at his craft. Day in and day out, he poured his energy into writing code, solving complex problems, and ensuring that the company's products were nothing short of exceptional. As the startup grew, so did Jake's responsibilities. He took on more challenging projects, earned the respect of his colleagues, and became an indispensable member of the team. However, there was one role that Jake had envisioned for himself but never expected would come so soon: leadership. Despite his stellar performance as an individual contributor, Jake had always been content to focus on the technical aspects of his job. He relished in the thrill of tackling difficult coding challenges and found fulfillment in tangible results of his work. The idea of leading a team while enticing was going to be a jump for him this early in his career. A series of unexpected departures left the company in need of someone to step up and take charge of a critical project. And with his track record of success and his deep understanding of the company's technology, Jake was the perfect choice. Jake accepted the promotion, believing that he could simply apply the same principles that served him well as an individual contributor to his new role as a leader. However, he quickly discovered that leading a team was an entirely different beast altogether. Suddenly, Jake found himself grappling with a host of challenges that he had never encountered before. He struggled to delegate tasks, effectively communicate his vision to his team, navigate the interpersonal dynamics that inevitably arose in a high-pressure work environment. His instinct to dive into the minutiae of every project, owned over years of working as a software engineer, proved to be a hindrance rather than a help. As the weeks turned into months, Jake's frustration grew. Despite his best efforts, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was in over his head. And so, what was Jake going to do? What would anybody in his shoes do? As the weeks turned into months, Jake's frustration grew. Despite his best efforts, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was in over his head. His team's progress stagnated, morale plummeted, and tensions began to simmer beneath the surface. So what happened to Jake and others like him as they struggled making the jump to executive leadership? On the podcast, we are diving into the mysteries of leadership failures, as we will, week over week, but join us today for our inaugural adventure to unlock the secrets to success that only failure can provide. This is the Chronicles of Failure. I'm Kim Salvini, your host, joined by my co-host, Seth Terbeek. Tune in weekly for leadership failure stories straight from the source, sprinkled with historical references. Let's uncover the true lessons learned and apply them to our everyday lives. This week's chronicle, Sailing to the C-Suite Without a Compass. This chronicle will outline Seth Terbeek's very own transition to executive leadership, assessed through the historical lens of other executive transitions and their shortcomings. The rise of Marissa Mayer, former CEO of Yahoo, will be discussed alongside Seth's executive transition. As though both managed through things differently, there are strong takeaways from both. Seth Terbeek is currently the VP of Transformation at Dr. First, a healthcare technology company headquartered in Rockville, Maryland. Seth himself resides in upstate New York with his wife and sons and has quite the career trajectory under his belt as he climbed into executive leadership before the age of 30, making a huge dent in the company's bottom line by 40 and now moving the company toward exciting new endeavors. But it wasn't always so smooth sailing. So what was the rough wave that he hit on his way to C-Suite Island? What was his self-perceived demise?
It was really failing to realize that there was a significant change in activities to perform at a vice president level. And so that, when I think about sort of like the punchline for this failure is really what that was.
Typical overperformer makes a move to executive leadership role. What could go wrong? He was used to getting stuff done, as he puts it, and that isn't exactly what this new role was calling for.
So I got to a point where I was having some conversations about my goals and strategy with my boss at the time. And he tells me, it's time for you to basically, fly on your own and figure out how to do this yourself. And that's where I feel is like, oh crap, like I actually don't know how to do this. I've just been so focused on, getting this promotion, and I really don't know where to go from here.
So, the common misconception, he who is good at most is good at everything, right? Marissa Mayer, former CEO of Yahoo, was criticized of making critical errors at this pivotal moment, the same one that Seth's arriving at. In a Forbes article written in 2015 titled Marissa Mayer, A Case Study in Poor Leadership, the contributing writer Mike Myatt writes that not every talented, successful executive is CEO ready. Mayer is a textbook example of this. The writer predicted years early that the eager new CEO would fail. What did he base that on? I mean, failure or not, that's debatable in this case. But Yahoo was acquired later in 2017 by Verizon after unsuccessful acquisitions, security breaches, and ultimately declining revenue. So how did this once perceived visionary leader struggle to lead when given the opportunity, and why didn't Yahoo's board recognize this before appointing her? Mike Myatt, the writer, observed that she was a chronic micromanager and lacked the strategic direction that was required of her. Her decision-making process was ultimately generally criticized for being slow and indecisive, hindering the company's ability to innovate and adapt to the rapidly changing digital landscape. Seth, on the other hand, took a different approach. Or did he?
Because at a vice president, like there's a whole nother mental move you have to make of this ability to develop a vision, cast that to your peers, to your team members, to those above you, and then really have a strong ability to negotiate, debate, and drive those folks you're working with. And if you don't have that, you don't have a solid plan in your own mind about exactly how you're going to grow this team and move things forward, you're really going to struggle to actually perform at that level. And so that was really where I felt I started to fail a lot. Was I was not doing that, and so if you've ever heard of the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, that was me. I was living that out. I was trying to do the old things, but not looking at, okay, this is actually going to be another big shift, and to be able to move that forward. There were times when, in prior promotions, maybe some of the things I did, I kind of moved forward. But there were times as well where I was taking on new tasks. But this was a whole nother approach to it. I feel like this is the pivot in terms of promotions, where it really becomes a lot less of the actual, like what you would think of as doing, right? So getting reports done, working with customers, getting that type of work out. It's really a different category of work. And so that really put me, at a detriment when working with my peers in this role.
So what do you do when you don't know what to do? When, perhaps like Marissa Mayer, you feel tempted to make high-stakes decisions with a low-stakes playbook? I asked Seth more about his GSD mentality and how that played into his ability to make a strategic pivot.
Especially at this company where things are really hard, where folks are really focused on having an individual contribution, that becomes really difficult when you're like, yeah, okay, well, I need to do this other stuff of casting this vision, but then how do I start to show results if I'm not doing things? And so that was so for me, I think there was a point later on in my career where I started to get more exposure outside of the company. So I would go to work with other executives. I was asked to do through some interview processes, actually, some vision casting for them, where they say, all right, you're going to come in and take over this team. Tell us what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, what it's going to look like. And that was a big mental shift for me that I really hadn't gone through at that point. And so to me, the idea of mapping out a framework of your thinking is a big step to say, here's the structure of how I will organize a team, how I will organize their activities. Those are not things that I'm going to be doing, right? But this is how I'm going to build the team that will support getting those things done. That was a big change in my ability of going from, okay, I'm thinking and doing all these things. So I'm thinking and supporting the people who are actually going to do it.
Okay, so noted. No micromanaging. Delegation's pretty key here. Supporting your team while delegating is ultra important, and while he doesn't admit it here, I worked with him later in his tenure, and he's very skilled in this area.
So that helped a big part. And then the other was needing to come in and sell the company on this new department. So actually saying, hey, let's put a customer transformation department in place was a big shift. There was, as a company, nothing had ever been done around that. And so had to do a lot of thinking around why for the business would they do this. When you're focused on just getting things done, a lot of times you're just getting the work, right? You're seeing a problem or someone's asking you to help them with something, and so you go do it and you get it done. This is, I had to convince them, one, there was a problem, and two, there was a solution, and three, I was the right person for the solution. And so, that whole thing of trying to help them understand, like casting that out to them of this is how we should go about it, really helped me make that shift in a way that I hadn't done the first time, because I was just given a team and said, okay, here, go operate this team. And I wasn't ready to do that at a vice president level.
Okay, so here's another solid point that I'm taking note of. It's not just bringing the problems, it's bringing solutions, right? And in the best case, like this one, bringing a problem to the table that others didn't know they had, and in this case was leaking revenue, and you know how to fix it. He's making this seem easy, but doing that as a new leader is not as easy as it seems, and especially not without guidance and support like the one that Seth seeked out on his own. And so from this, I'm hearing another point, that external advice, networking, mentorship, that's crucial in helping to prepare you for what might be to come. Seth says that what was key for him was taking a step back and just not continuing down the same path. He had to take a step back and assess what he was faced with and how to move through that strategically.
Really redesigning the entire thing, like not just maintaining and iterating over the things that are already in place, but finding out, okay, how do I really make a massive step forward would really have been helpful. And then also, having people to bounce that idea off of, right? So having the ability to really work with folks, present this to them before I take it internally would have been a big help, because without that, now I'm just like going out there and trying it out with these folks who I'm reporting to are my peers. And you've got limited chances to be successful or make mistakes before people's opinions of you are really solidly formed, and you've kind of burned your ability to do that in the future.
Oof, okay, this is big because we're hitting the same point again. Peers, peer review, guidance, mentorship, networking. He's right. You get 3 strikes in the big leagues, and you'd hate to whiff on a fastball in front of your new teammates, right? So naturally, I ask him, how does he create the network that he keeps referencing?
Out. So I did a lot of time on LinkedIn. I looked for groups in the customer success space that I could participate in. And so a couple of the ones that were really informative or formative in my thinking were a roundtable discussion of other customer success leaders where we get together monthly in a video call and have a chat around a particular problem. So that gave a lot of really low risk opportunity to share my thinking on things, practice speaking up, because that doesn't come easily necessarily everyone, doesn't for me. And then like being able to see, okay, did my idea land? Was it well received? Did I miss the mark? And then hear other people's thinking as well. And so that really helped to inform my own thinking in the future. The other was, there are lots of different Slack community groups out there that you can spend time in. And so you get to see people post problems, you get to, post your own problem, and engaging with folks has been really great. So, I was able to ask a question and meet 2 really great folks who really helped inform my thinking around some problems I was trying to solve. And then just start to get, a wealth of ideas that you can use to kind of think through, all right, I've got this, piece of the company that I'm leading now. what am I going to do to change it? It's really important to get outside of your own head and fill that with ideas from other areas that you can decide how best to leverage for your own business and team.
Ooh, doing time on LinkedIn, scary. But seriously, this is a great resource and tool, as well as Slack, and I am going to do some social stalking in a second. But before I do, I needed to ask Seth, how would he title this chronicle?
I mean, you could make it a how-to, right, of how to make the jump to vice president, or you could say how to not make the jump to vice president, and what's going to make you fail when you do it this way, right? So that's the thing that you want to avoid. So I think both of those would be fair options.
All right, that's our show for this week, and we can't wait to share more interviews moving forward. With Seth by my side this time, we're going to be talking to Christian Jakenfields, who knows a thing or two about failing, and that's actually why he's starting his own company to assist founders in growing their business the right way the first time. More on that next week. For Seth Terbeek and myself, stay chronically failing forward for all of our sake.